both in amazing ways and not so much. We're Ben and Sia, and welcome to the Gnaw on This Business Bites podcast. This show is all about real life things we all deal with every day, how they relate to business, and how to make some sense out of our daily chaos. Welcome to the show. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Gnaw on This Business Bites. I'm Ben, and this is Sia. So here's a question for you. There's a really important question for you. Are you listening to talk? Or are you listening to understand? Seriously, are you listening to talk? Or are you listening to understand? The majority of us talk and listen at the same time. There's a little voice that's going on inside of our head going, but I got this really interesting thing I want to tell you, but I really want to share this with you, but I don't agree with what you have to say. And you're waiting for that person to have a breath so you can just jump right in. And when you're doing that, hey, listen, we all have done it many times in our life, God knows. When we're doing that, we're not listening to the other person because we've already sat there and started the voice track in our head of what's the next thing we're going to say. So guess what? All of a sudden it starts sounding like the Peanuts teacher, wah, 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 wah. And you're just waiting for that person to, and then I can talk to you about what I want to talk to you about. And that's not listening to understand. One of the greatest people I ever talked to, he was an owner of a restaurant. When I talked to him, he was in his mid 60s. He was actually a yogi. He was actually a yogi from India. And this guy would sit there and stare at you with complete attention while you were during the conversation. And when you finally finished what you had to say, he'd think for a second and then he'd respond. There was no thoughts going in his head other than trying to understand what you were trying to say until you completed your entire thought. He made no assumptions. He had no preamble thought. His attitude was, I want to understand everything that you had to say. I'm going to take it in. I'm going to think about it for a second, and then I'm going to respond. And it was one of the most incredible things I've ever learned in my life. And it's difficult as all heck to do. We all know it. So Sia, I want you to gnaw on this for a second.
And for those that are listening, that was Sia inhaling and exhaling because I had to slow my head down. I'm getting all the feels and not in a good way because I'm like, guilty. Literally in my head, I was literally saying, me, that's me. Nope, I do that too. Das. And by the way, I say das Boot in my head because I think it's funnier. But yeah, man, I get so excited. I wonder what component of a neurodiverse brain really struggles with something like this, right? Because I can assure you, I am listening. I am really thinking about like hearing what you're saying and listening to understand what you're saying. And then squirrel happens. And then and there there goes my answer, right? So I hear you. I understand what you're saying. And it's so fracking hard. Normal brained people have a difficulty of it. But what do you think stems it? Like, where's that stem for the need to be like, oh, but let me say my opinion? Is it rooted in some level of narcissism? Not saying we're all narcissists, but selfishness. Or do you think it's stemmed into like the need to be understood from your perspective? What is it you think? Because I don't think we intentionally say like just forget what Ben just said, right? Or, like you said, the yogi was like, slow down. But where's that come from? Where's that root? I think is what's getting me in my head right now.
And I think it comes from when we're young children. And I really do. I think it comes from when we're young kids, because when we're young kids, we're so excited about everything, because everything and anything is new. Everything is new. And we're excited about everything. And we want to tell the world every little thing that's going on in our heads. And, we just, we build up that muscle memory. And it's something that is with us from a very young thing where we're always, but mom, mom, as you're tugging on her dress or whatever, and you're just trying to get your thing out. And God help you if you had 6 brothers and sisters,
Yeah.
and all of them trying to do this all at the same time. I mean, I had one younger brother. Okay, I manipulated the conversation. I fully admit that. But when we're young, we want to be the center of attention. And as we get older, we either build up that self-confidence to sit there and say, you know what, it's not about me, it's about learning from other people, or we don't. You know, either we need to have this underlying, and it's not malicious, it's not narcissistic, it's just an innate thought process of, I need to be heard. And, you know, I'm not seeing this as an evil thing. I think it's a thing that cognizant that we all have that need. We all have that need to have other people like us, and to other people think that we're smart, and other people listen to what our thought process is. And unfortunately, when we do that, we forget that the conversation has to go 2 ways. I think that being a podcaster has made me way better at listening to other people.
I need to applaud that. I really do. 100%. I think the podcast, I know everyone and their brother has a podcast, whatever, but you know what? I like that, and I'm okay with that, because yes, we are slowing down to listen and have what this I find very elusive for many, curiosity, to be in the moment with the person you're with. Again, assuming your podcast is interview style, everyone, okay? We're talking about fiction or solo and all that, totally different story. Interview-based podcast or panel, panel-based podcast, roundtable, whatever people want to call it. Curiosity to listen to that person in that moment in time, and then, being able to relate to it in a way, and tying, some kind of emotional connection, like is what I try to encourage all my clients is, you have a story to tell, make it emotional for us to listen and care and relate it back to who we are. And if right now, even I'm just noticing I did it, slow down my cadence. Holy crap. These people are like rubbing off on me. Wait a minute. I got to get back to my normal self. Reverse.
But getting down to that type of interview type podcast, or whether it's a panel type podcast or whatever, I never walk in with a series of questions. I get guests ask me all the time, well, what are the questions you're going to ask me?
Oh.
And I go, I don't know. Well, can you give me any, preconceived questions so I can prepare? No. Well, I don't want to be on your podcast. That's fine.
Okay. Yep.
Because for me, it's a conversation.
Yeah.
I know the first question I'm going to ask you. I know the last question I'm going to ask you, because that's how I sum up every single interview. Every person gets the same interview question. If when you walk off stage, or you get in your car and you drive away from a meeting, what's the one thing you want people to think about you when you're not in the room? That's my signature question. And it ends every single interview. The first one is just a setup. All it is a setup. We know basically where we're going, but it's a conversation.
Yes.
And what somebody says, it is the impetus for what my next question is going to be. If I'm sitting there reading off a list of 10 questions, I'm not listening to that person. I'm waiting to find out when I can ask that next question. And it may be totally a non sequitur compared to what that person just said, that they might have just opened up their soul to me. And I'm ignoring it because I've got another question I've got to ask.
And you can tell those types of interviews and that host, right? I think sometimes it's lack of experience. It's a lack of connection between the two people that are conversing, right? And I've given guidance to my clients in the past where I had a client that was like, I couldn't feel this person. I just wasn't connecting with them on any level ground. And I actually said to them, I go, I can see it. I heard it. I saw it. Like, I can tell. And that's sometimes, I think when we're having conversations, sometimes there's this need to have some kind of closure to it or something like that. Sometimes you just need to cut your losses, right? Like if a conversation is not going well, like at a cocktail meetup, I was at a happy hour last night. So thank you. Those that make me, have one sip of wine too many, sippy grape juice. But you know what? I enjoyed the company that I was with, so we were just continuing and carrying on. But I can't tell you every single person I met at that happy hour I wanted to hang out and have another sippy sip with. I mean, we both, I think it was like that signal of like, okay, great, well,
My
good luck
mother's
to ya,
calling.
you know?
Sorry, I have to go over there and talk to these people now.
Oh, look,
But-
this wine glass is empty. It's full. Gotta go.
But you have to care.
Yeah.
You have to care about the people in front of you. And you know what? We're never going to care about everybody. We're never going to be everybody's best friend. We're never going to be a perfect listener for everyone. But we have to have the intention to try
Yes.
and realize that our opinions are going to be different from their opinions. Our beliefs are going to be different from their beliefs. Our thoughts are going to be different from their thoughts. And it doesn't make them wrong. It doesn't make us right. It makes us different. And it's that conversation and the ability to actively listen, to understand and value that person that makes it interesting.
Oh my God. You know, you just made me think that you could tie this into, I don't know, all aspects of life and politics. Maybe I should have my family listen to this episode of like, hey, why don't we listen to understand each other and not listen to judge each other? What?
That's crazy stuff. And maybe we should do another episode on that, but we're running out of time. So let's let people gnaw on this. I'm Ben.
And I'm Sia.
We'll see you soon.
Hey. Thanks for listening to another episode of Not On This, Business Bites. If you liked what you heard, we most humbly ask that you like, share, and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to communicate more effectively within your organization, contact Ben at yourbrandmarketing.com or me at brilliantbeammedia.com. We can help you build your community, brand awareness, and personality through digital content and podcasting. We cannot wait to hear from you. So see you next week for another episode of Not On This, Business Bites.